Hello, my name is Colt, and today I'm going to talk about self-differentiation and the three predictable, steps that you can count on when you start to change within a system, a family system, work system, whatever it may be. And you probably are familiar with this because sometimes we accidentally change. We do something that's different than what the system is used to, and there's a negativity that happens, right? The idea is not only being aware of these predictable three steps that happen, the system reacting to you when you change, but when you purposely are changing, that you stick to the plan, you stick to your guiding principles as the reaction happens. In fact, this is why it's so hard to change, is because the negative reactions from others when you do change. But if you can be aware of those, if you can be aware of those three predictable steps that happen, those three predictable steps that happen when you start to change, then you can pass those tests and stay on the path to change. And the fourth thing that typically happens, and I'll explain all this, is that most people adjust to the new you. But typically we fold before that can happen. So let's jump right into it. So again, what is self-differentiation? Self-differentiation is this process of knowing where you begin and others end, or knowing where others end and you begin. Right? It's staying in the dance of relationships. Obviously, if someone's doing something egregious, someone's being abusive, and you've set boundaries and nothing's changing, yes, you need to, get some space from those relationships. We need to have some time off. We need to go away. Right? That's important. But if boundaries were never established, if you haven't practiced using your voice, then self-differentiation is this process of practicing practicing using a voice, making people deal with you, giving people opportunity to reject you before you reject yourself first, or just cut off and or people please and a mesh in order not to deal with the emotional anxiety within you. So it's this process of reducing anxiety, becoming calm, practicing calmness, practicing principles of indirection, whether that's mantras, meditation, prayer, and this process of knowing your values, sticking to your values instead of letting your feelings be in the driver's seat. All that and more, it's a deep, deep well, self-differentiation work, and then allowing people to have their journey while you have your journey, right? So we're balancing togetherness and separateness. We're not pushing people away, and we're not totally just melting into people, okay? So one of the really big points of overcoming resistance is recognizing it's normal that people will resist change. In fact, if people don't resist change, that could be called abnormal. So having a realistic expectation that people want to maintain homeostasis. They want to maintain the equilibrium, the balance that they're used to. And that doesn't make them bad people. That doesn't necessarily make them narcissistic or selfish. Most of the people are asleep to this. And they just want to maintain what they know, right? And even if it's unhealthy on paper, they want to maintain what they know, all right? And so if you don't get that, it's going to be hard to move forward here, because the goal is not to change anyone and get anyone to see the light. The goal is, wait a second, this is what I need to be healthy to move forward, and this is just what needs to happen. And that's the only person who needs to change is me, and take responsibility for my own change and my own boundaries. If people don't adjust and change, that's another story. We can talk about that later. But if you're not changing, nothing changes. And when you change, you give everyone else an opportunity to change as well. But if you're waiting for other people to change until you change, you're going to be waiting a long time. Okay, so let's go straight into the three predictable steps of resistance. Okay, so let's use a husband and wife example. And let's say the wife is maturing and becoming more boundaried. She's not putting up with the alcoholism, right? She's recognizing enmeshment within herself, and she's going to start saying, I need to take full responsibility for my part in this relationship, practice saying no, have boundaries. Immediately, the first step that's going to happen, again, I'm talking in a general way, there's a lot of nuance here, but generally these three steps, the first step that you ought to expect is negativity. Duh, right? Negativity. I'm practicing boundaries. I'm saying, hey, you've had enough alcohol, or I'm not even allowing alcohol. Let's just go with that. I'm not even allowing alcohol in the house anymore. We're done. I'm done dealing with this. No more alcohol in the house, right? Negativity is the reaction. Even if on paper we both agree that you need to work, the husband needs to work on alcoholism, there's going to be an emotional reactivity, negativity. You have changed. You're different now, right? And this comes from that discomfort of emotional support is going to be taken away from me. Or just the idea that boundaries mean you don't love me, which isn't true. A boundary is just a boundary, right? So that's that first step to be aware of. And if you can pass this test, which most people don't because they're not aware of these, then there's going to be the next step to resistance to the wife changing, to an individual changing. But you got to pass that step. Okay, I understand you're upset. I'm not staying calm, not reacting to the reactivity. When you can act calmer, we can continue this conversation. When you stick to your guns, if you will, then we can move on to the next step. But if you don't, and you kind of cave, then the emotional equilibrium, the balance is maintaining. Even though it's unhealthy, that's what the person is seeking. They're seeking that familiarity. Familiar hells are preferable to strange heavens. So the next step, assuming you pass that test and have stood your ground, standing on your own 2 feet, is change back. Pressure to change back. Pressure to change back. And if you can stay again in this concept and recognize, wait, this is part of the process. I'm changing. The expectation is I'm going to get pressure to change back. This is the demand from the husband, again, in this example, to try to revert back to old patterns or behavior. And some emotional strategies that you may recognize is sometime when there's pressure to change back, there's silent treatment, there's withdrawing, there's pleading, right? And your job, in this example, the wife's job is to stand her ground. No, we're not doing that anymore. No more alcohol in the house. This is a pivotal moment. They're all pivotal moments, but this is the next pivotal moment. If you can pass this test, which is one of the harder ones because you change and I need you to change back, right? It's not done yet. You got one more test. And by the way, the person might jump in between 1, 2, 3, but just recognizing these are 3 predictable steps that you need to be aware of, and the opportunity is to grow and to practice your skills here. So the third step, change back or else. If you don't become the old self, and some of this stuff may not be directly said in English, but may be implied, but sometimes it's directly said. Just be aware of the emotional injury. If you don't change back, I'm going to leave you. There's going to be ultimatums said, right? This takes a huge emotional toll because this is where the rubber meets the road. You've passed the first 2 tests. The third one is change back or else. Now this is going to happen, whether it's explicitly said or implicitly said. It's important. Again, stand your ground. You're kind of calling the bluff here in poker, right? And they may very well leave, but you're leaving yourself nonetheless if you don't pass this test. So do you want to become a shell of yourself, or do you become more of yourself, right? You are trying to stay connected here. You're not making them a demon for this resistance. You're just saying no, right? And when you pass this, recognize, again, the testing may be retest. You got to keep passing these tests. It's not some magical thing. You got to stand your ground. You got to remind yourself of the vision of what you're trying to accomplish here, your guiding principles. Most people will adjust to the new you. Most people will adjust to the new you. As you go out this process, recognize the guilt's going to come up. Recognize you're not doing anything wrong. Guilt is not an emergency, right? It's better to feel guilty than resentful. And this is when it's appropriate. A lot of times you hear in therapy and coaching, you got to heal it. You got to feel it to heal it, excuse me. You got to heal it to feel it. I said it again wrong. You got to feel it to heal it. I get what they're trying to say. But what if the feeling is coming from the system anxiety to you changing? right? Then it's appropriate to block your feelings. It's appropriate to say, thank you, guilt, for sharing. I'm in the driver's seat. We're trying something else. And hold, like in Braveheart. This escalating resistance is difficult, but it's not impossible. And having a plan, working with a coach, working with a therapist, recognizing these 3 steps and that you can pass the test is vital. If you're just flying by the seat of your pants, then guess who's in the driver's seat? Not you, your feelings. Okay. And recognizing why it's easier to give in despite the long-term cost. It's easier to give in because immediately if you give in, you lower anxiety. But what if you can lower anxiety without giving in? That would be the training. And you can learn that. And that's for you to learn. That's in your responsibility to learn. So here's some more practical strategies for navigating the resistance, staying grounded, emotionally regulated. Yeah, of course. What does that look like? It could be breathing techniques. This is where that individualistic approach comes in, right? You're thinking systems, but you're still practicing individual strategies. Building support system, whether it's adult children of alcoholics, whether it's a therapy group, coaching group, being able to have people on call, a sponsor in a 12-step program, pastors, churches, whatever it may be, and practicing self-compassion. And notice I say self-compassion and not self-esteem. I'm not big on the self-esteem movement. I'm more on the self-compassion because self-compassion is a practice that you can immediately do or not do. Okay, I'm on a journey. It's okay. You're not going to be perfect. You're doing it, right? Okay, and then emphasize the benefits to yourself of self-differentiation, greater emotional dependence, being able to follow through. This too shall pass, right? Healthier, more authentic relationships versus relationships that are based on you jumping and running to them and rescuing, right? Or relationships that are constantly being pushed away because you don't know how to handle the reactivity, right? So again, let's summarize and end this episode here. The 3 predictable steps. 1, negativity. 2, change back. 3, change back or else. The goal is to get through that, stick with it, and most people will change. Okay. Please write questions. I'm going to keep making 3 episodes a week, and I look forward to hearing more from you. Self-differentiation is a journey. Let people have their journey. Focus on you. Focus on you. Focus on you. It's not about you. All this negativity. Focus on you. Take care.